Hello there, my sleepy fellows. Settle in, find comfort where you rest, and let the world outside fade into the quiet embrace of night. Tonight, our journey takes us once more through the heart of Skyrim, not the land of battle and glory, but the land as it once was, ancient and untouched. A place where stories sleep beneath stone and stars, waiting for gentle souls to uncover them. Tonight's tale follows the faint light of Azura's star, the legendary artifact said to hold the essence of timelessness. Some speak of its power, others of its beauty, but few know the quieter truth, the moments it has witnessed, the lives it has brushed against, the forgotten paths it still softly illuminates. We'll walk the winding trails of the Velothi Mountains, where frost clings to pine branches and the hush of falling snow silences the world. Through hidden glades and moonlit valleys, we'll follow the glow of an ancient memory, whispered to those who listen closely enough. If you enjoy this journey through Skyrim's quieter side, please consider supporting the channel by liking, subscribing, or sharing your thoughts in the comments. Your presence here keeps these stories alive, just as the star itself holds the flickers of lives long past. Now, close your eyes, breathe deeply, and let go of the day's weight. The path is clear, the night is calm, and the light of Azura's star awaits. The road leading into the Velothi Mountains was quiet, the air sharp with the bite of winter. Sivaryn, a wanderer long accustomed to Skyrim's wild paths, moved steadily along the narrow trail, his cloak pulled tightly around him. The sky above had begun to darken, and with the fading light came the first hints of the auroras, their soft glow stretching like silk across the heavens. Sivaryn had not set out to chase legends. He had once been a scholar in Winterhold, his days spent among fragile tomes and scrolls, studying the forgotten lore of Tamriel. But time had taught him that not all knowledge lay within stone walls and candlelit archives. Some truths waited out here in the stillness of the wilds, far from the noise of the world. It was during one of those quiet moments, resting beside a dwindling campfire near the White River, that the message found him, not in ink or parchment, but in a dream, a vision of pale light flickering through the trees, leading him toward a faint, distant glow. He had followed dreams before, only to find crumbling ruins and hollow promises. But this felt different. The light had been soft, steady, almost welcoming, like a hand extended from the past. When Sivaryn woke, a single phrase lingered in his mind, clear as spoken words. The star still shines where time forgets. He had known immediately what it referred to, Azura's star, the legendary artifact tied to the Daedric prince of dusk and dawn. Most stories spoke of the star as a tool, a vessel for magic. But the older tales, the ones whispered by elders in firelit halls, spoke of something else. Not power, but memory. Azura's star was said to witness moments as they passed, holding them like light caught in crystal. Not just great events, but quiet ones. A child's laughter in a snow-covered village, the last words of an elder as the fire burned low, the hush of a forest untouched by footsteps. These were the stories that drew Sivaryn onward. He did not seek power nor riches. He had seen what ambition did to men, how the hunger for knowledge could twist even the noblest hearts. What Sivaryn sought was understanding, to walk where others had walked, to see the world as it had been, not through history's cold lens, but through the quiet, unspoken moments that history forgot. The message had been clear. If Azura's star still shone, it did so in the forgotten places where the world moved slowly, untouched by war or progress. And so, with nothing more than his pack, his wits, and the faint glow of the auroras overhead, Sivaryn had set out once more, not as a scholar, not as an adventurer, but as a witness, to find the light that had called to him from the edge of memory itself. The journey began beneath a sky streaked with fading gold and deepening indigo. Sivaryn stood at the edge of the Velothi Mountains, where jagged peaks rose like the spines of an ancient beast. Here, the land was untouched by roads and maps, marked only by the faint traces of old hunter paths and the silent footprints of snow wolves. The air was sharp with the scent of pine and frost. Each breath curled into mist, dissipating as quickly as it formed. Far below, the plains of Eastmarch stretched into the horizon, but Sivaryn's path led upward into the heart of the mountains, where few dared to wander. He moved quietly, his boots crunching softly against the thin layer of snow that dusted the ground. The birch trees, their pale bark almost luminous in the dim light, stood like silent watchers along the path. It was a narrow trail, winding between outcroppings of rock and frozen streams, long forgotten by travelers. As night deepened, the first strands of the auroras shimmered into view, emerald green, soft violet, and hints of pale gold weaving slowly across the sky. They reflected faintly off the snow, casting the world in an ethereal glow. Sivaryn paused at a ridge, pulling his cloak tighter as the wind picked up. From here, he could see the distant lights of Windhelm, flickering like tiny stars against the dark expanse. But that was not his destination. His path lay further west, toward the forgotten valleys, where legend claimed Azura's star had once been glimpsed long ago. The dream had not shown him the exact way, only glimpses. A frozen glade, a pool of water untouched by ice, and the faint glow of something pale and steady, nestled among ancient stones. It was enough. As he descended into the next valley, the landscape shifted. Towering pine trees closed in around him, their branches heavy with snow. The forest floor was quiet, save for the occasional soft rustle of unseen creatures moving through the underbrush. The world here felt old, untouched by the wars and worries of men. A faint sound caught his attention, the soft murmur of running water, unusual in such cold. Following the sound, Sivaryn soon came upon a half-frozen stream, its surface glassy and smooth, reflecting the sky like polished silver. The water moved lazily beneath the thin layer of ice, whispering secrets only the land could understand. He knelt beside the stream, touching the ice. It was colder here, the air almost unnaturally still, as though the world itself were holding its breath. And there, caught between two frost-covered stones, he saw it. Not the star itself, but a faint shimmer, like moonlight caught beneath the ice. It flickered as the water moved, too steady to be mere reflection. Sivaryn's heart quickened. He followed the stream deeper into the forest, the glow growing stronger with each step. The trail led him to a hidden clearing surrounded by ancient trees whose trunks were knotted and twisted with age. At the center stood an old stone shrine, half collapsed and covered in moss and frost. The shrine was Nordic in design, but the carvings, stars, crescents, and delicate patterns like woven light were unlike in any he had seen before. They spoke not of battle or conquest, but of peace, observation, and memory. At the shrine's base, the water pooled into a small, unfrozen basin, its surface perfectly still despite the winter's grasp. And at the heart of the pool, nestled among fallen leaves and smooth stones, the light pulsed gently. Sivaryn stepped closer, careful not to disturb the fragile peace of the clearing. The air here was warm, not the heat of fire, but the gentle warmth of a summer evening long past, remembered only in dreams. The glow was not Azura's star, but a fragment, a reflection of its light, as though the artifact itself had once touched this place and left behind an echo. Sivaryn knelt beside the pool, his breath catching as he realized what he was seeing. This was not power. This was memory, held within the land itself. He reached out, brushing his fingertips across the water's surface. Ripples spread outward, and with them came images. A young woman, her hair braided with wildflowers, laughing as she knelt to collect water. A hunter, resting against the shrine's base, sharpening his blade as the sun set behind the peaks. An elder, cloaked and weathered, lighting a small lantern as twilight settled over the clearing. Moments, small, forgotten moments, untouched by history's grand tales. Sivaryn drew back, his heart quiet and full. He had found what he sought, not the star itself, but its purpose. The star was not merely a vessel for souls or magic. It was a witness, a keeper of the quiet stories that shaped lives and were forgotten by the world. As the auroras danced overhead, Sivaryn sat beside the pool, letting the warmth of the clearing surround him. He did not need to take the light. Its presence was enough. Tomorrow, he would return to the path, leave the mountains behind, and step once more into the world of men. But tonight, he would remember, and in doing so, he would honor the countless lives the star had quietly watched over long after their voices had faded into silence. Sivaryn sat quietly by the edge of the small, frost-rimmed pool, watching the faint light shimmer beneath the water's surface. The warmth that had settled over the clearing was unlike anything he had encountered before. It wasn't the heat of a flame or the warmth of sunlight, but something gentler, like the memory of warmth itself, lingering long after the moment had passed. He leaned forward, careful not to disturb the stillness of the water. The glow, pale and steady, pulsed faintly as though it had a heartbeat of its own. Sivaryn had seen many strange things in his travels, Nordic tombs that whispered in the wind, Dwemer machines still ticking centuries after their creators vanished, and standing stones that hummed beneath moonlight. But this was different. This was alive, in its own quiet way. The carvings around the old shrine told no clear story, only fragments of symbols, stars, crescents, and spirals that seemed to flow together like strands of silk. They spoke of observation, of time passing without judgment or interference, not the hand of a god reshaping the world, but the quiet watchfulness of something ancient and patient. Azura's star. The stories always spoke of its power to hold souls, to trap moments of life itself within its crystalline heart. But those were the tales told by mages and scholars, those who sought the artifact for its use, not its meaning. The older legends, the ones whispered by elders in firelit halls, spoke of a different purpose, not to trap life, but to witness it, to hold the light of moments too easily forgotten. Sivaryn reached out, his fingers grazing the water's surface. The glow responded immediately, swirling beneath his touch, forming patterns that looked almost like constellations. And then, images, faint, fleeting, but unmistakable. A child, no older than 10, running barefoot through the snow, laughing as her father chased her with a bundle of herbs freshly gathered. The joy on her face was radiant, the kind of happiness that no history book would ever record. A hunter, standing beneath the boughs of an ancient pine, bow lowered as he watched a snow hare dart into the underbrush. He smiled, lowering his weapon, content simply to observe life rather than end it. Two elders, seated by this very pool, their hands clasped as they whispered softly to one another. No words reached Sivaryn's ears, but the tenderness between them was clear, a moment of peace, fleeting and precious. The images faded as the water stilled once more, the glow settling into a quiet pulse. Sivaryn withdrew his hand, heart pounding, not from fear but from understanding. This was not power. This was memory. The star's light, reflected here in this forgotten glade, was a window into the moments that history overlooked. Not battles or conquests, not the rise and fall of kings, but the soft, quiet moments that defined lives, the laughter of children, the peace of a shared silence, the warmth of a fire on a cold night. Sivaryn sat back, breath curling into the air as he processed what he had seen. He had come searching for Azura's star, thinking it might hold some great secret or long-lost power. But now he realized the true treasure was not the artifact itself, but what it represented. The past, remembered, the present, cherished, the future, unwritten. But why here? Why now? The star itself was said to rest far from Skyrim, guarded by those who sought to wield its power. This light, this echo of the star's glow, was something else. A fragment, perhaps, or a place where the star had once lingered, leaving behind its quiet mark. Sivaryn stood slowly, stretching stiff limbs as he surveyed the clearing once more. The shrine was ancient, the stone worn smooth by centuries of wind and snow. Yet, the carvings remained sharp, as though time had chosen to pass this place by. On the far side of the shrine, half hidden beneath a tangle of frost-covered ivy, he saw something, a narrow path, barely more than a trail, leading deeper into the forest. The glow from the pool seemed to brighten ever so slightly, as if encouraging him onward. With one last glance at the still water, Sivaryn adjusted his cloak and stepped onto the path. The forest closed in around him, the air growing cooler with each step. The snow beneath his boots was undisturbed, as though no living thing had passed this way in years. After several minutes of quiet walking, the path opened into a second clearing, larger than the first. At its center stood a stone archway, cracked and weathered, but still standing tall. And within the arch, darkness. Not the darkness of night, but something deeper, more absolute. Sivaryn hesitated. This was old magic, the kind that did not fade with time. The arch itself was carved with the same delicate symbols as the shrine, but here they were more defined, more purposeful. Above the arch, faint but legible, were words etched into the stone in old Nordic script. Where light lingers, memory remains. Heart steady, Sivaryn stepped beneath the arch. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the darkness parted, like mist burned away by morning light. Beyond the arch lay a narrow stone staircase, descending into the earth. The faint glow, that same pale radiance he had followed from the pool, emanated from below. With careful steps, Sivaryn descended. The walls were rough-hewn stone, damp with the chill of deep places, yet the air remained breathable, almost comforting. The further he went, the more the glow intensified, not blinding, but gentle, like moonlight filtered through leaves. At last, the stairs ended, opening into a chamber carved directly into the mountainside. The space was larger than he expected, almost like a hall, but without the grandeur of Nordic crypts or Dwemer ruins. It was simpler, more intimate, a place of remembrance, not worship. In the center of the chamber stood a stone pedestal, upon which rested a shallow basin filled with water. The light emanated from within the basin, swirling lazily like mist trapped beneath glass. Sivaryn approached, heart calm despite the strangeness of it all. This was not danger. This was peace. Carved into the pedestal were more words, this time in Daedric script, but softened, almost elegant, compared to the harshness usually associated with such markings. To witness is to honor, to remember is to preserve. Without hesitation, Sivaryn reached out and touched the water. It was warm, impossibly so for a place so deep within the earth, and the light responded. Images bloomed once more, not just moments, but stories. A mother in ancient garb, cradling her newborn beside a fire, her face alight with joy. A hunter returning home, greeted by children who leapt into his arms, their laughter echoing through the chamber. Two elders sitting side by side as the last light of day faded from the sky, content in the quiet comfort of shared years. These were not tales of heroes or kings. They were fragments of life, moments that would never be sung of in mead halls or written in grand histories. Yet, here they were, held in light, eternal, and unforgotten. Tears prickled the corners of Sivaryn's eyes. This was why the star mattered, not as a weapon or a tool, but as a witness, a silent promise that no moment, no life, no love was truly lost, so long as someone remembered. The light dimmed as Sivaryn withdrew his hand, settling once more into a gentle, steady glow. He stood there for a long while, not speaking, not moving, simply existing in the quiet embrace of the past. Finally, with a slow, steady breath, he turned and made his way back up the stairs. The forest greeted him once more, untouched by time. The auroras still danced overhead, and the snow fell softly, as though the world itself had sighed in relief. Sivaryn knew now that he did not need to find Azura's star itself. He had found its heart, its purpose, here in the forgotten places where life, in all its fleeting beauty, was held like light within crystal. He smiled, pulling his cloak tighter against the cold. The journey was not over, but this chapter had found its end. And sometimes that was enough. Sivaryn stood at the base of the stone staircase, the soft glow from the water basin still reflecting in his eyes. The chamber around him was quiet, not silent in the way tombs are, but peaceful, like the hush that follows the last note of a song. The carvings on the walls, the gentle warmth in the air, the light dancing within the pool, it was all connected. This place was not meant to be found by those seeking power. It was meant for those who sought understanding, those willing to pause and look beyond the grand tales and forgotten wars. The truth was clear now. Azura's star was never just an artifact. It was a vessel of memory, a shard of timeless observation. Not the souls of the dead, but the moments of the living, the laughter of a child, the quiet grief of parting, the warmth of a hand held in comfort. But why here? Why now? Sivaryn stepped closer to the pedestal, eyes tracing the Daedric script etched into the stone once more. To witness is to honor, to remember is to preserve. The light within the basin pulsed faintly, as though awaiting a decision. This was not just a place of memory, it was a crossroads. The light could remain, quietly holding the past as it had for centuries, or it could be released, not destroyed, but freed to travel once more. Sivaryn closed his eyes, breathing deeply. What was the purpose of memory, if not to be shared? He reached forward, fingertips grazing the water's surface. The glow brightened, swirling upward like mist caught in moonlight. Images flickered, 1,000 lives, 1,000 moments, untethered from the confines of stone and shadow. And then the voice came, not loud, not commanding, soft, familiar, like a memory of kindness. Do you choose to remember or to forget? Sivaryn's breath caught in his throat. The choice was clear. To leave the light here, undisturbed, would mean safety. The past would remain quietly preserved, untouched by time or mortal hands. But to release it, it would scatter across Skyrim, across Tamriel, like stardust. Fragments of memory would settle into the land itself, a breeze through the pine forests, a shimmer on the surface of a quiet lake, the warmth of sunlight breaking through clouds. Not seen, but felt by those who still listened. Sivaryn opened his eyes, gaze steady. I choose to remember. The moment his words touched the air, the basin flared with light, soft, radiant, and impossibly pure. The carvings along the walls shimmered as though awakened from a long slumber. The warmth grew, not scorching, but comforting, like the final embers of a fire before sleep. The light rose, forming a single, radiant orb that hovered above the pedestal. Sivaryn stepped back, heart steady. The past would no longer remain confined. It would drift, unseen yet ever present, a quiet testament to the lives that had once filled this land. The orb pulsed once, then fractured, 1,000 tiny lights scattering like fireflies, passing through stone as though the mountain itself had opened its arms to memory. And then, silence. The chamber dimmed, the warmth lingering but no longer radiant. The carvings faded into stillness once more, and the water in the basin settled, now clear and still. Sivaryn exhaled slowly. It was done. The weight that had settled in his chest since first glimpsing the glow in the forest lifted. He had not claimed the star's power. He had honored its purpose. Turning, he retraced his steps up the narrow staircase, each footfall steady and sure. As he passed beneath the ancient archway, he glanced back one final time. The chamber was quiet now, not abandoned, but fulfilled. Outside, the forest remained untouched. Snow still blanketed the ground, and the auroras still wove their silent dance across the sky. But something felt different. The air was lighter, the cold less biting. Sivaryn paused beside the frozen stream where he had first seen the light. The pool was dark now, its purpose fulfilled. Yet, the peace that surrounded it remained, a quiet reminder that not all legacies are written in stone. Some live on in the smallest moments, the gentlest touches. As he stepped onto the path leading back toward the lowlands, the first light of dawn broke across the horizon. The stars began to fade, their watch come light for another night. Sivaryn smiled faintly. He would carry this journey with him, not as a tale for taverns or scrolls, but as a memory, quietly held, like the light of Azura's star itself. The past had been honored, the present embraced, and the future, as always, remained unwritten, waiting to be shaped by quiet, living hands. With that thought, Sivaryn vanished into the trees, the path before him lit not by magic, but by the gentle light of dawn. And somewhere, far beyond mortal sight, the star itself glowed a little brighter. Sivaryn stepped out of the ancient chamber and into the crisp mountain air, the last traces of the star's light fading behind him. The forest was quiet, blanketed in soft snow, as though the world itself had paused to acknowledge what had just passed. He stood for a moment, breathing deeply, letting the silence settle around him like an old friend. The choice had been made. The memories, once confined to the quiet depths of stone and shadow, now drifted freely, woven into the land itself, into the wind that whispered through the trees, the shimmer of frost on pine needles, the warmth of sunlight breaking through cloud cover. The past was no longer hidden. It lived, not as a monument, but as part of the world it had once shaped. Turning toward the narrow path that led down from the mountains, Sivaryn began his descent. His steps were slow, unhurried. There was no rush now. The weight that had pressed on his heart since the vision first called him northward had lifted, replaced by something gentler, a quiet understanding, a sense of peace. The forest around him seemed different, though nothing had visibly changed. The same ancient birch trees lined the trail, their pale bark peeling in delicate curls. The same frozen stream murmured faintly beneath a thin sheet of ice, reflecting the soft glow of dawn. Yet, the air itself felt alive, charged with something he couldn't quite name. Perhaps that was the true gift of memory, not to hold moments captive, but to let them linger, shaping the world long after they had passed. Sivaryn paused by the stream, crouching to brush a gloved hand over the frost-covered grass. Once, this place had been silent, untouched by all but the occasional wanderer or curious animal. Now, it felt watched, not in warning, but in welcome, as though the forest itself had gained a new awareness, softened by the memories it now carried. He smiled faintly. This was what Azura's star had always been meant for, not power, not possession, but preservation. The smallest moments, the quiet joys and sorrows that history overlooked, these were the heart of the world, and now they would never be forgotten. As he stood and continued down the trail, the sky above began to shift. Masser and Secunda hung low on the horizon, their pale light fading as the sun's first rays painted the eastern sky in hues of gold and rose. The auroras, once vibrant ribbons of emerald and violet, now shimmered faintly, like the last echoes of a song drifting into silence. Sivaryn thought of the faces he had seen in the light, the mother with her newborn, the hunter lowering his bow, the elders sharing quiet words by the fireside. None had been kings or heroes. None would be remembered in grand ballads or etched into stone. Yet, in those moments, they had lived fully, their lives rich with meaning, not because of what they accomplished, but because of how they had loved, laughed, and quietly endured. It was easy, Sivaryn realized, to think history was made only by the grand and powerful, those who led armies, built empires, or wielded magic strong enough to reshape the land. But history was also written in the smaller moments, the ones too fleeting for scrolls and statues. The warmth of a shared meal after a long journey, the hush of snowfall blanketing a sleeping village, the gentle touch of a hand offering comfort without words. These were the moments that truly shaped the world. And now, they were part of it once more, scattered like stardust across the mountains and valleys of Skyrim. The path wound downward, leading Sivaryn through a thicket of snow-laden pines. He moved quietly, listening not just to the forest's sounds, but to the stillness between them where memory lingered. A faint breeze stirred the branches overhead, dislodging a flurry of snow that drifted down like pale blossoms. It would be easy to return to Winterhold, to the familiar walls of the college, where scholars pored over dusty tomes and debated ancient theories. There, he could write of what he had seen, commit the experience to parchment, so others might know of the light that once lingered in the mountains. But somehow, the thought felt wrong. This was not a story meant for books or lectures. It was a living thing, meant to be felt, not studied. To try and pin it down with ink and paper would be to strip it of its quiet beauty. No, he would carry the memory within himself, as the forest now carried it, not as knowledge to be shared, but as understanding, a reminder that even in the coldest corners of the world, warmth endured. The sun rose higher as Sivaryn emerged from the tree line, the frozen plains of Eastmarch stretching before him in endless shades of white and silver. Somewhere to the south, the banners of Windhelm fluttered faintly against the sky, but the city's walls felt distant, unimportant. For now, the world was enough. Sivaryn paused one last time at the edge of the clearing, looking back toward the mountains. The archway that had led him into the heart of the star's memory was no longer visible, hidden once more by snow and shadow. Yet, the sense of its presence lingered, not as a place, but as a feeling. The past was safe now, not locked away, but woven into the fabric of the present, carried forward by the wind, the water, the turning of the seasons. And as long as there were those willing to pause, to listen, and to remember, it would never truly fade. With a final nod to the mountains, Sivaryn turned toward the sunlit path ahead. There were other roads to walk, other stories to encounter, but this journey, at least, had found its end. Or perhaps its beginning. For memory, after all, is never truly finished. It simply waits, quietly, for the next traveler to pass by and wonder at the light that lingers long after the moment itself is gone. The path down the mountain was quiet, save for the soft crunch of Sivaryn's boots against the snow-covered ground. The sky, once streaked with the vibrant colors of the auroras, had shifted to pale blue, the first light of dawn stretching across the horizon. The air was crisp and still, carrying the faintest scent of pine and frost. High above, Masser and Secunda lingered, their silver light slowly fading as the sun climbed higher. The forest, once cloaked in shadow, now revealed its true form, tall, ancient pines standing like silent guardians, their branches heavy with snow. Tiny crystals caught the morning light, sparkling like scattered diamonds. Sivaryn paused beside the frozen stream, where the first shimmer of Azura's light had called him to this journey. The water beneath the ice moved slowly, a gentle murmur that blended with the soft sigh of the wind through the trees. The pool, once illuminated by the star's reflection, now lay dark and still, its purpose fulfilled. The forest breathed around him, alive in its quiet way. Somewhere in the distance, a snow hare darted across the trail, leaving delicate tracks in the fresh powder. The faint call of a bird, waking with the dawn, echoed through the stillness. Sivaryn stood there for a moment longer, letting the peace of the place settle into his bones. The journey had ended, but the memory lingered, like the warmth of a fire long after the flames had died. He turned and continued down the path, the sound of his footsteps fading into the hush of the wild. The wind stirred again, brushing through the branches above and sending a light flurry of snowflakes drifting down like petals. As the forest receded behind him, the plains of Eastmarch stretched out ahead, a vast expanse of white and gold, dotted with dark patches of evergreen. Far off, the walls of Windhelm stood sentinel against the horizon, smoke rising faintly from unseen hearths. But here, away from stone walls and bustling streets, peace endured. The sounds of the world softened, the whisper of wind, the crackling of frost, the distant call of wildlife. Even the river, flowing steadily beneath its icy shell, seemed to hum with quiet contentment. Above it all, the last faint threads of the auroras still lingered, pale and fragile against the morning sky. Like the memories Sivaryn had released, they drifted slowly, quietly, until they faded into the light of day. And so, the forest returned to its slumber. The shrine, the pool, the glowing chamber deep within the earth. They remained, not as relics to be claimed, but as part of the land itself, folded into the rhythm of the world. The path wound onward, stretching toward distant hills and sunlit valleys. And in the gentle hush of Skyrim's wilderness, peace remained. For those who listened closely, the land still whispered its stories, soft, fleeting, but never truly forgotten.